All right, everyone, welcome back to the Course of Action podcast. I have an outstanding guest with me today, Chris O'Connell from across the pond. How you doing, sir?
Very well. Very glad to be here with you, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And how's the weather over in the UK treating you right now?
Do you know what? It's a little bit cold, but it's actually quite nice. The sun's out. It's quite fresh. It feels like a good weather patch is coming. Actually, I hear it's quite cold where you are, though.
Yeah, we had a beautiful day yesterday. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was like in the 60s. Sun was out, like great weather, but that
Mhm.
Arctic air is moving in to, Oklahoma into the Midwest here in the States, and it's going to drop rain and sleet and snow over the course of the
Wow.
next like 48 to 72 hours. Like today,
Yeah.
the rest of Tuesday, I know it's later where you're at, but the rest of today for us is going to be getting colder and drizzle and rain into snow tonight. And then Wednesday and Thursday are just snow and ice, negative degree temperatures the whole time.
Sounds like you're a seasoned weather person in terms of you know what to expect, you know what to do as well.
Yeah, well, here in the Midwest in the United States, like the weather can change,
Yeah.
in a matter of a couple hours, So you really got to be prepared for everything.
Good luck with it.
Yeah, thanks. So, let's get into who Chris O'Connell is and give us your story, what you're doing, and then we'll kind of talk about what's going on now.
Sure. Well, do you want me to go right back or just recently? Because there's quite a lot. But I can cram it in.
Whatever you feel comfortable with sharing so people can kind of get to know who you are.
Okay, I'll do a brief overview of my childhood because I think it's quite important to put the context in. So I was born in a caravan, not very wealthy parents. My mum actually abandoned myself and my brother when I was 2 and he was 3. I was fostered, and then my dad took us back at the age of 7. And kind of had a bit of a rough childhood in terms of being bullied at school for not having any food or clothes and stuff like that. And then was abused as well by my stepmom. So that didn't do my mental health any good. But what it did do
Hmm.
is give me an enormous amount of drive. I kind of had to stand on my own 2 feet from a very very young age.
Hmm.
And I think that enabled me and pushed me to eventually start my own business. So at the age of I think 19, 20, I joined a very large corporate recruitment business. They had eight or 900 consultants worldwide across about 12 countries, and I became their worldwide top biller. So I sort of worked my way up there, um, and was billing about £1 million a year. Did that for 5 years, became a director, loved the whole thing. Although I was very good at recruitment, I kind of fell into it. Obviously, my personal life and my mental health wasn't particularly good because I was affected by my childhood, but I had this inner drive and inner belief that I had to prove other people wrong. But I left that business, set up my own business in 2003, got that to 100 people, £35 million annual turnover, 14 industry awards. I was Southwest Entrepreneur of the Year. It was one of the best, if not the best, businesses in the UK, if not Europe. We were voted the second best company to work for in Europe
Wow.
at one point. So it was
Wow.
an amazing,
Yeah.
amazing business. Um, then my business partner walked in one day and said that he didn't want to do it anymore, so we had to find a buyer. I did a deal with a private equity firm, and then it all went a little bit wrong. Well, I say a little bit wrong. A court battle ensued for 4 years. I had to take the individuals to the High Court. I lost millions of pounds. So I kind of woke up one day, was the CEO of a large business, and then the following day, I wasn't. I was watching daytime TV every day, and it hit me very hard. And I lost my purpose, my identity, and I lost actually in that 2 or 3 year period. I lost probably about £25 million. I lost. I got divorced. I lost my house. I lost access to my child.
Mm.
Tried to commit suicide. It was a very difficult time for me.
Yeah.
And rushing through to the next phase. I kind of I've reinvented myself now, come back into the sector. Now I've pivoted myself and I've built a very robust leadership consultancy business. So I now advise businesses on how to grow, and I'm loving it. I'm a podcast host. I'm a mental health advocate. So I've kind of utilized my adversities, my experiences develop myself and other people, which I really enjoy. So yeah,
So how much is a pound compared to a dollar?
I don't think the difference. I think it's. I think that's probably about $45 million, something like that.
So when you say
30 million.
35 million is really 45 million US
I think
dollars,
so, something like that.
something
Yeah,
like that. Okay, so
yeah,
we're talking about, a lot of money. You were in
yeah.
several businesses with a lot of money. So for those that are listening that aren't familiar with what a pound is, like myself, or I know what it is, I just don't know how to convert it. Um,
Hmm.
35 million pounds is like 45 million pounds here in the
Yeah.
States. So we're talking about some serious money here. We're not talking about, you know,
No.
some chump change. We're talking about a very serious company. Which for the UK, it not being, well, it's big, it's not massive like
Hmm.
the US or China is, but 45 million for a small business is not small.
No,
It,
particularly when you were I owned half of that business, and
yeah,
that's not the value of the business. That's
sure, there's
that's the, that's
revenue.
the kind of like yeah. So it wasn't just the money though, although that was a huge part. It was the whole identity of and the way it was done. So we can delve into that as well. But
Yeah,
and it taught me a lot of lessons around. I don't think I was actually on the planet when I was. It sounds like quite a strange thing to say, but I'd put my suit on, become this kind of stoic, motivational leader um, who wasn't phased by anything. I was very ruthless, very sharp, very on point. And you kind of had to be that way. But, come home and I was a different person. All I did was talk about work. My whole life
yeah,
was encapsulated with work. And it became a bit of, in the end, it was a bit of a car crash.
yeah. And it changes you the way you kind of carry yourself. It's real hard for
Mm,
people to shut off business at 5 o'clock and go home
mm,
and be dad, be husband, be Chris, whoever you are.
yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to shut that off. It's something I dealt with in the military, and it's what I try to really help um, fellow veterans with now, in military members with now, is
Mm,
learning the mental health and kind of understanding that it's okay.
yeah.
It's okay to seek help. It's okay to do this because we all have a journey. You
Mm,
had your journey, your really really dark times where suicide was a real thought,
yeah.
and I've been there too, where I've had some horrible dark times where I've contemplated things like that.
Yeah.
It's okay to get help. It's okay to talk. It's okay to show a weakness because it's not really a weakness. It's just kind of fold in the fabric. And there's ways of getting over it. There's ways of pushing through, and you're a great example
Mm,
for people to hear your story about going from millions of pounds in a business to dealing with the court system to losing it all and to coming back because
yeah.
now your business is flourishing. And I've known you for like probably a year and a half, almost 2 years now on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And, I saw you start and kind of build, especially with the pandemic and to navigate the pandemic. And
Mm.
now you're here. How did the pandemic play into some of those plans?
I think yeah, going back to it. So the way I kind of pivoted was utilizing my story. So I came back onto LinkedIn and was very, as you know, very open and vulnerable with my story, and then that enabled me to win hearts and minds and build a platform and build connection and build a community. And then once the trust was there, my skill set, my experience commercially was I think second to none, and it enabled me to build my business. And then the pandemic hit, and actually, in a funny sort of way, it really helped my business because I think there was a lot of businesses out there that probably needed my service to grow normally, but throw in a pandemic as well, they just didn't know what to do. So I think, if anything, it helped my business in terms of, I could help those leaders navigate around not just the process, the operational efficiency, how to grow a business, the nuts and bolts, which I can do, but actually kind of like the communication piece, the vulnerability piece, the empathy piece. How are they, if they couldn't communicate with their people when there was no pandemic and they was in the office every day, how would they communicate and motivate with their people, through a laptop? So it was all that kind of stuff. And actually, for me, it was a real eye opener. And actually, I think that it helped me personally as well spend more time with myself, reflect on what I was good at, what I wasn't good at, and I think maybe for yourself as well, you might admit this, but having that extra time on your hands was for some
Huge.
people it was a godsend. For other people, they didn't know what to do with themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for me it was huge because it um, allowed me to do a lot of extra things around the house, spend more time with the kids, but it also gave me that time to think and say, am I just li- am I just content with the 9 to 5, or do I want to do
Hmm.
more? So all those things that I was thinking about doing, coaching and doing a podcast and finally getting serious about writing the book, um, it gave me time to really think about those things and reflect,
Yeah.
because I wasn't really pursuing those things. They were just good ideas on the big idea board. And
Hmm.
it really gave me time to go, you're wasting your talents, man. You're wasting your
Yeah.
talents. You could be using a lot of things that you offer to help people and to do big things and to kind of expand yourself outside of the 9 to 5 and take a little more control of your life. And that's what
Yes.
the pandemic did for me, was really, it gave me time to think about those things and build up the bravery to jump in and do them.
I think what it also did as well was it created more of a level playing field in terms of less of a hierarchy between a leader and his or her team around actually they would be going through the same differences around, or they have to navigate children, have to navigate their family, they have to work from home, and it's not it's actually they probably miss the camaraderie of the office as well themselves and thought, well, if I'm struggling, maybe my people are as well, and I think it helped in many aspects,
Yeah,
as well as also the negative of um, you know I think there's a hangover from the pandemic, but
sure.
I feel now we're coming out of it. I think the hybrid model of some work from home, some in the office, I think that's actually an optimum position to be in. I don't know what you think, but I think it's proven that I don't think just having the office or just having working from home is the answer. I think that balance in the middle is for me has been a sweet spot for productivity as well.
Yeah, I think what a lot of good leaders here in the States are starting to think of the whole hybrid model
Mm.
is favorable. I think they're starting to think, I can save a lot of money on overhead because
Yeah.
I don't have, instead of 200 people in the office, maybe I only have 75. I can get just as
Yes.
much productivity, if not more, out of the same amount of people.
Totally.
Um, I can do pay raises differently. I can do a lot of things
Mm.
differently because I've changed my business model, forcibly,
Yes.
obviously, but if I embrace
Yeah.
it, I can do a lot of things. The
Uh,
challenge
Yeah.
is, how do you lead people that you don't see every day?
I think it's tapping it. I've always used the process of managing the individual, not the team. Whereas I think a lot of businesses they have this generally a one size fits all of culture fit. It should be culture add, and I think everyone's different. Some people are motivated by different things. But just quickly backtracking on the productivity point, the benefit of working from home is kind of like by osmosis. You have to kind of empower people and trust them more to do
Yeah,
things so that they feel probably less watched, less kind of big brother kind of thing. Also, they haven't got the commute. So the whole 9 to 5 thing as well. I mean, we found in the businesses that I help coach that people are doing more hours than they were if they were coming into the office because they could
yeah,
work at 9 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the
oh
morning. It would
yeah,
fit in with their schedule. So they were more relaxed. They
yeah.
wasn't rushing to get to work, all that kind of stuff.
It's
So
exactly what I was doing.
um, that's what I found. And in terms of kind of like the whole communication piece, actually, leaders were having more one-to-one connection and quality time, although it was through a screen, because you're kind of forced to look at the person and engage and talk. Whereas in an office, it's a fleeting 5 minutes. So
Yeah, it's a little more
in a
natural. It's not
paradoxical way,
scheduled
yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. So, but it took a while for people. But then I've heard horror stories of
Yep.
businesses, insisting they have cameras on their laptops to watch watch people when they're working from home as well. So, I think the good businesses are agile and they adapt basically.
And I think, I'm fortunate to be on a lot of good teams where there's a lot of trust. Um, and it's very much been a, yeah, if you have your camera and you want to turn it on, great. We'd love to see your face.
Hmm.
If you don't, you don't. That's cool too. As long as you're logging in, and having like a weekly meeting where you're catching up, you're making sure you're touching all the bases and
Yeah.
there's no loose ends. And then the rest of the week, it's like, hey, you know your jobs, go do them. You need help, communicate that help. If it's
Mm.
working for you to work at home, work at home. We're trusting that you're
Yes.
working your 8 hours. We're trusting that you're getting in your 40 hours a week. We're trusting that you're meeting your deadlines. So until you
Yeah.
tell us otherwise or you show us otherwise,
Yeah.
that trust is there and people are being
Yes.
productive, maybe more so. I know I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
working out, reading, logging into my computer, seeing what daily
Yeah.
tasks were, reading or working on things before I took to get to school, and then coming back working some more. I mean, I might close
Sure.
the laptop at 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night finally, because
Yeah.
I was just bouncing
And
around all day doing being super productive in like in my life altogether.
totally. And I think that's right. I think what we do outside of work plays a big part inside of work. And if people have got more opportunity to spend that quality time with the kids, do the work, do the reading, you find they're more energized to do and they execute better stuff at work as well. So
Hmm.
that's why it's important. But also, people look forward to going into the office. If it's once or twice a week and it's around their schedule, you find it's actually it's probably the best thing that could have happened for productivity, because I think when you're driving people too hard 9 to 5 the time they get home, they're too stressed, so they don't look after their wives or their children or their health, and they eat crap or they go and drink, and then they go into the office even more tired.
Yep.
But at home, they can do a round of golf and stuff. So it's an interesting one. So what we need to be careful of is, though, and some of the stuff I have found is that people have got too comfortable with working from home. Not saying too comfortable, but almost use it as an excuse not to go in the office. I'm not an advocate of banishing the office totally. So the hybrid model is. I want to make the point that it's still important to have that office presence as well.
Yeah, I think so too, because, you know, I think there's a very big interpersonal relationship that has to still be had. And
Yeah,
people still want to feel part of the organization, even if they're, working remotely, because you're
sure.
vested in your job. So you definitely want to go into the office. I mean, I would say
Hmm.
most people, there's probably a handful of people who just don't care at all, but most
Yeah.
people want to go into the office and look their boss in the
Hmm.
face and have their boss remember their name,
Yeah.
even if they haven't seen them in 30 days. So
Yeah.
I think the
Exactly.
worst thing that somebody could do as a leader is not be able to do that. Because the minute you're like,
Hmm.
what is your name again? You've
Yeah.
lost
Yeah.
you've lost the relationship, and that gives them something negative to think about, which is dangerous. And
Mm.
I think this is the hybrid model, the remote working. It's here to stay, but
Yeah.
leaders are going to have to find, that balance, and they're going to have to really
Yeah.
understand how to still run an organization without having half of it or most of it within the same four walls. And that's a challenge. It can be done.
Mm.
It can be done,
Yeah.
but it's a
Yeah.
challenge for sure.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
So, but when the pandemic first hit, the UK was like really, really locked down. It wasn't like here in the
Yes.
States where, we have 50, 50 different states, and
Mm.
every single one of them was kind of doing their own thing. The government was like, hey, close businesses down and stuff like that. But each state was kind of doing their
Right.
own thing.
Sure.
The UK, though, was like lockdown, right?
Yeah, it was at one point where you couldn't literally do anything. And I mean, in New Zealand, there's like there are concentration camps, like.
Really?
But in the UK, I think now in the UK, we're pretty much, it's almost each day I go outside, there's more people. So as each day passes, I think it's almost back to normal now. But you're right, there was periods, a couple of months where you couldn't even go out, and that's when people became very skeptical about spending any money, very nervous, became very insular, and there was a lot of the mental health stuff come out, the well-being stuff, and I think it was a challenging time for everybody. But I'm certainly sensing that I think there's going to be an aftermath of it, but
Yeah.
I think some people are fearful of going back to the old normal as well. That they're scared of
Yeah, I think that's
big
fair to say.
groups and all that stuff. Mm.
Yeah, I think it's fair. We've kind of had a rush of the Omicron roll through here
Yeah.
recently. Um,
Hmm.
I avoided COVID for almost 2 years, and then 3 weeks ago, here at the beginning of January, I caught it. Finally, I caught it,
Right.
and
Yeah, I had it twice actually.
really, geez, like
Mm.
it's kind of storming through. That new variant is kind of storming through.
Yeah.
So I think even the people that are kind of comfortable or like, this is kind of over, are now catching it
Mm.
and saying and kind of questioning, going, you know, when are we going to be over this? When are we going to kick it to the side? And I think the answer is it's kind of like the flu. I don't think we're ever going to get over
Yeah.
it. I think it's here to stay. We're going to have to adjust our lives
I
accordingly.
think so, and I think what it's also done is the whole image of big is best, big company, corporate, marketing and stuff like that. I think the pandemic has changed that, where individuals like you and I are good examples around the power of personal brand and leaders having to kind of show up on video online and having a personality. And well, you can't hide. People don't want that. They
Yeah.
because you can't see people in person. It's almost like a social media personality contest nowadays, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, a lot of stuff was born out of the pandemic. These big
Mm,
corporations found themselves, kind of with their hand in a cookie jar and going, what do we do? Like, we're not ready to send
yeah,
people home to do remote work. And,
yeah,
for some of them, it was a massive expense because it was like, well, we don't even have laptops. Like,
mm,
we're gonna have to buy laptops just to send people home to continue to
yeah,
work. Like, that's an investment, and I think some of them weren't ready, whereas others were, and others were like, okay, we got this figured out. We're going to do a
yeah,
schedule, half people in office, half people at home, and then you're going to switch. We're going to share
yeah,
desks. We're going to, disinfect. And they kind of reacted, and then personal branding came up. And, I watched a lot of people, LinkedIn exploded, but I watched a lot of people
yes,
on LinkedIn build themselves into a business,
mm,
and they had no choice. Some of them had no choice because their 9 to 5 sent them home and
yes,
said don't come back, you know and that's a big deal. That's a really big deal, and a lot of them have built that. Well, now we're coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people are having to kind of pivot again.
yeah. I think people are buying from people. It's a common saying now, but people aren't necessarily buying from the business. They want to know the story, the human behind the business, and it's that trust element. So, again, I think we're moving into a different, exciting phase around. We talk about cryptocurrencies and NFTs as well. There's a lot of change going on in this. I think there's more change in the last couple of years than there has been in the last 10.
Oh yeah, I mean, the world economy is has changed significantly.
Mm,
We still
mm,
have, we're coming out of the pandemic, but we still have job shortages and we have people
sure.
shortages. Our government's, subsiding people and having them stay at home to be safe, and people are getting used to it. And, there's supply shortages still. And yeah, like you said,
Mm,
cryptocurrency exploded. NFTs are a big deal.
yeah. And you touched on it with businesses, and I think the word pivot has been very prominent. And I think a lot of people, me included, and you, have had to pivot. Like you're doing a podcast now for God's sake, and I've done that, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's almost forced people to have to get out of their comfort zones and do things
Mhm.
differently. Businesses, individuals, fathers, mothers, daughter, and I think that's good because if it's sometimes adversity and difficulties, opportunity as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. This was a great opportunity for you to jump into new endeavors if you were bold and brave enough
Mm,
to do it. Um, it helped that, for me, I was on LinkedIn, so I built a big community. I went from like 120 followers on LinkedIn to over 2,000 in a year.
wow,
And
amazing!
yeah, and all like-minded people who were
I
doing
remember
the
that.
same thing,
Yeah.
and that's huge because then you have a community around you who you can say, well, I'm supporting you. I know you're going to kind of support me back. So if I jump
Mm,
into a new endeavor, you know, I'm going to get the advertising support from you by comments on the posts, maybe doing a little,
yeah.
um, guest video. Like me and you did some guest videos there kind of at the
Yes.
beginning, and I did them for other people. I know you did them for other people. And,
Mm,
you know, that kind of partnership helps people build. their brand, build their business. And
Yeah.
that kind of support helps because when you go to do a new endeavor, there's a lot of questions behind it. As you know, you've been a business
Yeah.
owner and a CEO. There's always
Hmm.
pros and cons, there's always risks associated. But when you know people are going to have your back unconditionally,
Yeah.
judgment free, you're, you're a little more willing to take that first step out there.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of a platform like LinkedIn. I think it's in a different league in terms of the likes of Facebook and Instagram, which have their place. But I think the community aspect of LinkedIn, the ability to, I think I remember how we first engaged. I think you started commenting on some of my posts, and your comments were kind of, oh wow, this guy's got some. And then we just got together, and it's a real, and that's the beauty of this day and age where you can actually build a community. You can start a business from your bedroom. You can become a millionaire. Like you've seen 15-year-olds become millionaires selling LFTs. Now that's a strange example, but it's almost like there isn't much excuse now for you not to actually
No,
do something significant, you know?
yeah, there really isn't. I mean, it's that new time. Um, I think now it's about proving that you can do it long term because now that we're rolling out of the pandemic, we
Mm.
kind of have that hangover still. But
Hmm.
now it's going to be kind of that put up or shut up time. Like, are you going
Yeah,
to keep investing? Are you going to keep grinding away as the world
sure.
changes? Um, and
Yeah,
that's a big deal, because it's really going to separate the strong from the weak, the dedicated to the
yeah.
hey, this was a good idea at the time, and results are going to change for some people, and it's going to really test them on how dedicated they are,
Hmm.
and that's a big deal. But what are you up to right now? Now that we're in 2022, what's Chris
Yeah.
doing now?
Well, I've built a really good non-executive director business. So I've got a 10 or 12 businesses where I go in as effectively a pseudo chairman, where I go in and I teach them or coach them or mentor these businesses on how to grow their businesses, and I really love that. So it's leadership development, how to improve their margins, how to hire. So obviously, in my sector, to do what I've done um, is still a great achievement, and not many people can or have done that where they've built a business from scratch and got it to sale. So it's using that experience, the good and the bad, and actually because I've experienced everything pretty much you can experience. Is more often what I'm finding is my mistakes are the ones that are helping me now teach people how not to how not to do it as well. So I'm enjoying that. I'm a podcast host now, like yourself. I'm a mental health first aider, mental health advocate as well. I'm doing some speaker talks as well. So I'm loving. I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to push myself. I'm doing a tough mud. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
It's like an assault course. I'm doing that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to get fit and healthy and improve my diet and all sorts. So building relationships with my children. And just trying to do lots of stuff that are gonna you know just personal development. I get a lot of enjoyment out of growing.
Yeah.
Personal growth and teaching others as well. So
I see your posts on Instagram all the time with you and the kids going out and doing stuff, which I
yeah,
think is incredible. It shows another side of individuals, and like you said,
yeah.
Instagram and Facebook have a place. I think that's exactly what stuff like that's for.
Hmm.
LinkedIn tends to be a little more business heavy. Um, but I
Yeah,
love that stuff. But I want to go back to what you said about the experience, and I think it's something really important for people listening to understand is that your your good experiences are just as valuable as your
yeah,
bad experiences. So those
totally.
dark times in your life, I would maybe even say have bigger lessons to learn and have more things you can use later
Hmm.
on if you use them correctly and you look back correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was a millionaire at 26, 27. I could walk into any shop and buy what I wanted. And I did. I had 45 grand watches. I'm not showing off. These are, I had Range Rovers, houses, cars, but and then I lost all that kind of stuff. And the trauma, the emptiness of losing that and all that. So how's that helped me now? It's helped me. So when a business problem happens, it's about actually, do I need to react? Do I need to respond? It's made me a lot more patient and a lot more measured in my responses as well. It's like kind of like comparatively, I think more often than not, people react too quickly to. Sometimes you don't have to react or even respond. You just breathe in, get a second opinion, talk to other, talk to other people as well. So I think it's about with adversity and with things that happen to you in a negative way. I think it teaches you a bit of patience,
Hmm.
a bit of gratitude, and I think patience is a paradoxical superpower in terms of like leaders want to be the biggest and best yesterday, but
Hmm.
actually slowing down to speed up and executing three or four things really well as opposed to 25 things badly. All that kind of stuff's really important, I think.
It is. It really is. And let's talk about the podcast because I just saw that you got the green light to do like a season two. Was it base mindset leadership? What is it called?
Purpose-led leadership, yeah.
Purpose led leadership. Sorry.
Hmm.
So we're gonna get a season two. I've listened to some of season one.
Yeah.
What's in store for like season two? Where's the podcast going?
Well, this is an interesting question because I took 2 months off because I felt as if season one was great and it was very me about my journey around the guests and the whole concept was getting my guests on to talk about their adversity, how they overcame their adversity, to really open up, be very vulnerable, which I've been doing, and talk about what it really felt like to go through what they went through. And some of them, they're so brave and courageous and open, but then I was thinking to myself, where am I in my life? I spent the last 2, 3, 4 years bearing my soul, telling everybody about my adversity, my trauma, my all my stuff. But now I'm pivoting. I'm in the stage in my life where I want to move towards rather than away from. So what I'm trying, so season two is going to be about, yes, let's talk about some of the adversity, but let's get guests on that have pivoted and are looking forward and are being successful. And that's because that's where I am. So there's a slight change. It's going to be more kind of like how have you got where you've got to, and it's going to be really successful people who've kept their feet on the ground, have had that adversity, but I'll ask this question to you as well, which I'll ask on my future guests around. I think it's important to talk about your story, but sometimes are we guilty of making our story be too important, and we don't look forward? So the answer I think is that it'll always be part of you, but if you always talk about the past, you're not gonna make the future. What do you think?
Yeah, great question, man. I think I kind of agree. You'll always have the past. Um, how relevant the past is, I think, kind of grows in a way
Hmm.
of it grows with you. So right now, something fresh, 2 3 years, that's fairly fresh. That's still
Yeah.
maybe defining your actions and who you are and and things like that.
Hmm.
4 to 5 years older, maybe it's not as relevant anymore. So as you grow, I think it
Yes.
grows with you in a matter of, I think you should let it grow with you in a matter of, yeah, I've been through some stuff. I'm here on the other side and I'm focused on this. So I think what you're doing with the
Yeah.
podcast, I think is great because it shows that growth of now I'm on kind of the other side. It's still very
Yeah.
relevant. It's just not,
Yes.
it's not all of me. And I think people who have had dramatic, very traumatic pasts, um, for me, my parents got divorced when I was 11. I didn't have a very good relationship with my father for 6 7 years until I was
Yeah.
like 18, about to graduate high school, for a lot of various reasons. Um, but a couple years after that, I started mending fences with him, and we started getting a better relationship. I joined the military. I gave him a reason to be proud of me. I started becoming an adult, and
Hmm.
I think our dynamic shifted. Our past became less relevant, and it became
Yeah.
more so about the future. Like, hey, we've mended fences. We're father and son. We're more friendly. he it really changed for me when I was in the military, and he called me. He said, "You're my hero. You're my
Wow.
hero now." That's when it changed for us
Yeah.
because I knew he was looking up to me.
Wow.
Instead of us looking eye to eye and kind of judging each
Yeah.
other, he was looking up to me, and I was like, "Wow, okay." So I think,
Mm.
to your point, yeah, your past is relevant until it kind of isn't anymore, and it starts to taper
Yeah.
off, and it starts to
That's
go
it.
from your past, traumatic past, to a push
I,
forward.
yeah. I feel as if I needed to be that open though, because it was healing me whilst it was
Yeah,
helping others. It was my own therapy as well, and I feel like even when you asked me to introduce myself, I still went back to that 2 year old and kind of like so it's still there, and I still feel that you can't diminish that.
no,
And there's always two schools of thought, but my answer to it is that because some people think if you keep going back too much, but I still feel that there are people out there that haven't
yeah.
opened up that wound and done it, and they're the ones that are struggling more. So I think once you've done it, move on. But you have to go back before you can go forward.
Yeah, I definitely think it defines who you are, but I think you have to
Hmm.
have that pivotal moment where you decide to not to
Yes.
stop being the past and start being the future
Yes.
with an eye on the past to say it's very much who I am, but
Hmm.
I'm I'm stronger than it now and I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's a we say it like it's easy, but it's a very tough thing for people to do, anywhere from
Hmm.
having traumatic childhood, bad marriages, sexually abused or taken advantage of at a young age,
Yeah.
even at an older age.
Absolutely.
It's not easy. You don't just flip a switch and get over
No.
those things and start growing from them and healing. But
Yeah.
there is a pivotal moment where you need it to happen. And then you can use those experiences and say, I'm growing. I'm stronger today.
Yeah.
Those are still traumatic experiences, but they don't define how I wake up every morning anymore.
I find it really interesting, this kind of stuff, this psychology around. I think everyone's got an inner child, and I think you have to talk to that inner child, but you have to parent yourself as well. And I think what you're talking very eloquently about, I think you're parenting yourself around actually, you recognize that sometimes your inner child needs a cuddle, but then sometimes you need to be that man, that dad, and say, no, mate, stop crying, fucking get on with it. you know?
Yeah,
Sorry to swear,
let's
but
go. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. It's and I
yeah.
love that that's where you're going with season 2 of the podcast. So I think it's going to be
Mm,
great to tune into that and see, you know, who you bring to the table and kind of the discussions you guys have going forward because
great.
it's a great example to people, even if somebody's listening and they say, this is exactly what I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah,
Maybe they're right. Maybe I need to look in the mirror and say, hey, it's time to toughen up and let's go. Um,
exactly.
it's not from a standpoint of stop being a sissy, or anything
No,
like that. It's
not
a
at all.
stop letting it dictate your life and start
Yeah,
letting it define who you are and open
yes.
the door and say, okay, let's
And
go.
that's it.
Let's
There's a
heal.
real fine balance there, isn't there? You're right.
Yeah.
And that's the art. That's the trick. Definitely agree with that.
So when's season 2 kicking off then?
Well, I'm recording now. I've just closed a really, really big guest. So I think the first one's going to be the third week of February. So just 2 weeks away. Just 2 weeks away.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what else is going on other than season 2 of the podcast?
Well, I recently moved into a slightly bigger place. I mean, those that know me, I used to live in a really large, kind of big 5, 6 bedroom house with a swimming pool, that kind of stuff. But I kind of lost that or gave that to a previous partner, and I've just had to pivot myself. So I've got this lovely apartment on the river, and I'm enjoying spending the time there with that and building out different investments with um, crypto. And I've got 3 NFTs now, so I'm learning that.
Oh,
I think with the crypto thing, if you asked me 4 or 5 months ago, I would have said it's all a load of rubbish. But I just
yeah.
feel it's the way it's going. So what I'm trying to do is now I'm earning some good money again. Um, I used to spend money like water. Now I want, I want to invest it in the right way and and have some different kinds. So I'm looking at a digital course and looking at different revenue streams and earning money while you sleep and just trying to learn new stuff, man.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I haven't gotten into the crypto yet because I don't know. I haven't felt comfortable enough to really jump into it, and I don't understand NFTs. Um, I need to
Nor do I
find
really.
I need to find someone who
Yeah,
knows NFTs and have them come on to the podcast and just be like, "Hey, all right,
that'd be great.
from
Yeah,
talk to me like I'm an idiot," because
yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
understand it at all.
it's some of the prices they're going for, and you think it's just a piece of digital art. But I mean, it's one of those where I think curiosity is another leadership trait around.
Yeah.
There's too many leaders out there that I think they just kind of, oh no, it's going to be this. They dramatically assume the wrong thing, and I think you just be ask the question, be curious, do some investigation, learn and grow, and that's my mantra this year is to. I mean, I've adapted my. I've got my values on a whiteboard above my TV in my bedroom. I've got a visual vision board. I'm tracking my goals every day and every week. So I think I'm very accountable, which I'm really enjoying that kind of like being accountable to myself. I love that at the moment, so that's good.
So before we wrap up, let's let's see, where can people find more about Chris O'Connell at?
Yeah, well, LinkedIn, I do a lot on there. I get a million views a month, something like that. Instagram, I'm building. Facebook, they're the three main ones, but mainly LinkedIn and Instagram.
Okay, and then of course you can find the Purpose Driven Leadership podcast. Correct?
Purpose led leadership podcast. That's on all the podcast channels, so iTunes, Spotify, Google
The
Podcasts,
the
so
whole
the
nine.
usuals.
Okay,
Yeah.
so go check that out. Season 2 is coming soon. Chris has got some big guests coming up. Chris, man, I appreciate you coming on. Um, we'll wrap up here, and
Yeah.
here in a second, we'll catch up again here in a second.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was a real pleasure.